This is after step 25, the Tamiya Avante Black Special build. So from the last video to this video, I have basically installed most of the components on the front of the chassis. So this includes the anti-roll bar on the front, this little damper bit here, which allows the front to absorb impacts. I talked about this in the first video. So you can see there's this rocker arm here, right? It pivots on this axle which goes through the chassis. And then there's this sort of rubber kind of damper here. And so you can see it in action here. If there's any sort of collision, it'll try to dampen the impact a little bit. It is kind of hard, so I don't suspect that it would make the car invincible, of course, but it may help a little bit. I am beginning to see why this chassis was not a commercial success, at least as a racing chassis, and that has a lot to do with these otherwise very nice looking turnbuckles here. So although they do look very pretty and they're very smooth and very nice, the problem is that if you want to adjust any of them, you have to take them apart. So on a normal chassis, like for example my RC10, okay, if you want to adjust toe-in or camber or whatever, you just take a turnbuckle wrench to that and screw it in and out, and everything will adjust in real time. Here, suppose I wanted to adjust the camber, I have to unscrew this bit here, screw this in or out a little bit, screw it back in, and then remeasure the camber and keep going back and forth until I get what I want out of it. And that's just for camber. Same thing applies, that's for the front. Same for the rear, same for rear toe-in. Every little change you have to take some bit like this apart. And for some of these it's difficult. Like this guy here attaches both here and here by an E-clip. And taking E-clips out is always, well, it's never fun. It's always a pain. So it looks nice, it really does, but it's not really a true racing machine certainly by modern standards. There's too much that you have to take apart to work on the chassis or to even maintain it. So for example, I forgot to mention this in the past video. One weak spot here for the rear suspension is that the trailing arm mounts on the very ends here of the upper deck. So suppose you get into an accident and the rear wheel hits something. Okay, the first thing to snap is probably going to be this part of the upper deck here, which means if it does go, you have to replace the entire upper deck, which is expensive. I could imagine this carbon fiber piece, you probably can't get it as one piece. You'd have to get the upper and lower deck, and coming from Tamiya, you probably have to spend $50 or $60 just for one stupid crash. And replacing the upper deck takes a bit of effort because you have to take apart this whole assembly here because that attaches to the upper deck. Let me just move this around. But here's the front. It looks kind of interesting. The steering knuckle is just this bit here. And the ball end that will eventually attach to the steering bell crank is right here. And then this gold piece here, this hub carrier, pivots up and down. So it's this really interesting kind of three-piece trailing arm, hub carrier, and steering knuckle setup here, which you don't see in modern chassis. Normally, these joints here would be vertical, and this gold piece and this black piece would be just one unit. So, it's interesting. Let's see. So, all that's left really to build this is to assemble the steering bell crank and put in the tie rods to go to the front. And then after that, assemble the shocks, install the shocks, install the electronics, And then that's basically the end, you know, install the tires, paint the driver figure, paint the body, put the decals on, and that's it. So I will probably make one more video after the rolling chassis is complete and I have all the electronics installed. And then after that, I hope to make a video after the tires and the driver figure and the body is all done. So that is it for now.